Hello and welcome to the Climate Week NYC interview series, Sustainability Shorts, bringing you the short discussions with top business leaders about getting it done. Today, we're lucky to be joined by Diego Ibarra, Managing Director for the Americas for ENGIE Impact. Such a pleasure to have you with us, Diego.
Thank you, Angela. A pleasure to be here.
Let's jump into our first question. The theme for Climate Week New York City this year is getting it done. What does this mean to you and to ENGIE Impact?
Getting it done for us is really about transforming intention into action. Society is making significant strides towards a sustainable future, but our research really shows that there's still a significant gap between ambitions and implementing those plans. Complexity is really holding us back into moving to execution. And working through that complexity is really what drives us at ENGIE Impact and me personally. Bridging that gap, we know, will be the key to really solve this significant challenge that is climate change. At ENGIE Impact, we do that by enabling and accelerating the decarbonization transformation of large organizations. We do that by supporting these organizations in setting up their strategy and their actionable roadmaps, all the way to implementing those plans at speed and at scale. And we are already getting it done for 25% of Fortune 500 companies, making sustainability happen today. But of course, there's still a lot of work to be done.
No, absolutely. This is a trend we're seeing in so many places. Despite so much change in climate leadership, we're still falling short on targets, right? Like that's the reality, right? So how do we as climate leaders need to change, and what is ENGIE Impact doing differently to demonstrate this?
So things are changing, right? And I think a first step is to really recognize that there's significant change happening today. We know that 153 countries are strengthening or enacting new emissions targets. 137 countries recently pledged to end deforestation by 2030. And over 100 countries, right, are committing to reducing methane emissions by 30% by 2030. And this is significant. However, of course, we know that setting goals and announcing commitments makes headlines, but doesn't always translate into action. So I think business leaders need to first understand a key message, which is that delaying action today only makes it so much harder to take action tomorrow and so much more expensive, right? So the cost of not acting today is huge. And every part of society has a role to play. Business leaders need to courageously drive that behavioral change and not wait for the next extreme weather event to really trigger that awareness and that motivation to act. But they also need to do small, perhaps day-to-day changes, like ensuring that carbon is constantly included in the day-to-day decision-making. On the government side, they have a huge role to play, of course, by keep enacting regulation that limits emission, but also setting clear paths on how we will phase out carbon-heavy technologies. And lastly, of course, at the individual level, we don't only need to change our behavior, but we have the power to choose and convey our priorities to different businesses by the brands we choose to do business with. And at ENGIE Impact, we are, of course, not only helping these large organizations drive through this complexity, but we are walking the walk, and I'm happy to share that we achieve our goal of being carbon negative. So that for us is significant.
I mean, that's amazing. I think another challenge for us is, our younger people who are participating in this, climate movement, are skeptical of the ability of companies to stick to these commitments. And so what would be your message to younger people who are watching this today who might be in that camp?
So I would start, reaffirming that statement. I think business leaders and all of us need to understand that is a fact, right? So there are studies, Lancet study, for example, concluded that 60% of young people are extremely concerned about climate change. So recognizing that fact is a first step for all of us. But my message to young people is simple: is keep the pressure on, continue to have a voice in the conversation. Market forces and the business imperative is keeping sustainability as an unavoidable priority today in decision making. But the gap between ambitions and actions is still significant. And in that regard, young people have a huge role to play. They not only can, convey to the government representatives, they need to continue enacting, legislation that will help companies be more accountable and push for that phasing out of carbon-heavy technologies. But also, as consumers in the day-to-day, they can drive change by mindful choices on the brands that they want to do business with. And lastly, a lot of these young people today are climbing through the corporate ladder very, very quickly. And now they are actually having more influence in some of the day-to-day decisions of companies. And it's important that they keep conveying their priorities throughout their day-to-days. Lastly, I think their part is critical, because the only way we're going to solve these challenges is all of us are aligned and doing our part.
No, I love that. And before we close out, can you tell us a little bit more about how people can find out more details about what you're doing at ENGIE Impact?
Of course. So first, if you are joining us at Climate Week in New York, Catherine McGregor, our group CEO, will be in the opening ceremony, and our team will be hosting the roundtable and other events. So please approach us, and we'll be happy to have a conversation. But for those joining us remotely, you can engage with us at the Climate Week Hub through our website or social media, where you will be able to find other examples on how we've been, successful at supporting our clients move from strategy to implementation, and we'll be happy to have a conversation.
Oh, that's fabulous, Diego. Thank you so much. And that concludes our interview. To get more insights, make sure to get involved with Climate Week NYC from September 19th through the 25th. Check out our website for all the information. Thank you so much, Diego, for joining us today, and really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Angela. It was a pleasure being here.